Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Wednesday, May 12th, 2021, and this is What's Happening Dracut. We're happy to have you on board with us today. Thank you for joining us. And tonight we will bring you information of what's happening in Dracut. We are coming to you live from our beautiful studios here on Mill Street in Dracut, Massachusetts at DATV. I hope to keep the show and conversation interesting, fast-paced, and obviously stimulating to some, not all, but some. Introducing my co-hosts for this evening are Phil Thibault. He's a member of the Permanent Building Committee and has been an active member of the Dracut community for many, many years. He's also was a candidate, and which we're going to get into, for selectman this past Saturday. Yeah. We're not happy with the results, but we move on. And also with us tonight is the affable, friendly, overly kind, to his wife, that is, Mr. Gordy Scott.
Thanks.
Hi, Gordy. How are you?
Good. I just want to do a quick shout out, if I can.
Yes.
To Carol and Moose Borowski.
Yeah.
I know they're watching. He was a little upset that Frank was getting more airtime than him, so I got to make sure I call him out tonight.
Well, we want to, we were going to have Richard Silvio, but Richard Silvio has studying for his exam week. Yep. So he's not going to be here, and we hope that he does well, of course.
Education is
Education
important.
is first, number one, and of course. But Richard Silvio's number 2 fan, Carol Morosky.
That's our second call out.
2 call outs for Carol tonight. And Carol, you're only the second biggest fan of Richard Silvio because obviously his mom is his first.
My wife is up there too.
And your wife is right up there too. She's tied for second.
Yeah.
But Richard Silvio, your fans are looking for you. We miss you already, and we hope to have you here soon.
Also seen on the Big O's and Silvio show.
Oh, but, and there's another plug. We got to give a plug for my nephews, my cousins.
Absolutely.
That's what the rumor was around town, that both Richard and
they're your nephews?
And Joseph, Joey are my nephews.
Yeah.
Oh, they're related to me somehow. No relation. I don't think they want to own that.
I want to congratulate my son too, Kyle, who's graduating tomorrow from UMass Lowell. So he just made high honors 3.60. So he just slid in. But he's at the Red Sox game tonight, so he's having a good time with some of his friends from college. So they went out to celebrate at the Red Sox game. So shout out to him.
And they got
proud of him.
You should very well be, absolutely. And he's got a job now.
Yeah, he's got a job.
So he's all set now. All you got to do is get him off your dole.
Payroll.
Get him off your payroll.
Right.
Shift that payroll to the other way. I mean, both of my daughters lasted till they were 26, 27, something like that, or whatever. I know the youngest one, we put her off the payroll when she turned 27 and became on her own. Got her off the insurance.
I have my oldest actually working in my office, so
you're still paying them.
I'm still paying, but it's a paycheck.
But I had some news last week, and I've been holding it off because my daughter wanted to be sure that everything was right, and I put it on Facebook. On Mother's Day, I put it on Facebook that we've been keeping a secret, and my youngest daughter is going to have another, her first baby, but for us, another granddaughter.
Congratulations.
So we had a reveal at the house on Mother's Day.
But you can't get that grandson.
I can't get the son. Now, everybody's telling me, Phil, that it's the Zimini genes that are doing it. Yeah. Now, I've been told that science says that the man is the person who
determines the sex of the child.
Is that true?
That is correct.
Really? Do you know that to be true?
Yes, I know.
So, hey, I know that I have 2 lovely daughters, and when we got to number 2, my wife and I sat down, and I think I was like, 40-something, 42, 43 years old at the time, and I said to her, I don't want little babies running around. I want grandchildren running around when I'm in my 60s, not little babies when I'm in my 50s. So we stopped there and we moved on.
But that's got to be exciting for you. So you have.
Oh yeah, it's great. We just want them to be healthy because we know and we see so many unfortunate people having problems with children on different levels, health-wise. So we want ours to be hopefully very healthy, and we'll go forward with that. So, a lot of happening things in town over the last couple of days, and obviously we got to get into that. So, we do not have a weather report tonight. Unfortunately, our weatherman is feeling a little bit under the weather.
If you will.
How ironic. How ironic.
So he's taken the night off, so we hope to have him back. Sean Kelly's a great guy, does a great job with our weather, and I'm sure that he'll be back soon. But I wanted to just let everybody know that you can join us on Facebook. We're live streaming on Facebook right now. And you can also get us on the internet at dracuttv.org. And Phil always jumps on me there because I'm always doing the wrong thing there. So you can follow us there, or if you're in Dracut, you're on Comcast, you can get us on Comcast 8, Channel 8. And we are also on YouTube.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Are we live tonight on YouTube?
We are not live tonight. I didn't set it up before I got here because I had a wake to go to. But all our shows are posted up there. You can watch them anytime you want.
That's unfortunate that you had a wake to go to tonight. But we had a wake on Saturday also.
Yeah.
But that's all right. But it was like an Irish wake because we were very happy. We did our thing, which we'll get into in a minute. So. Join us in all those things. You can also call in tonight at 978-957-4243 and join in the fun. We're happy to have anyone and everyone that wants to call in. All we do is we ask that you give your name. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about we've already got a plethora of comments here. Fred Spicer is watching on DATV on Channel 8, and he's hoping that we have a good show. Angela is sending us smiles. She sent at Gordy. Jen call out. She likes that you calling out. You're calling out your wife. And Jennifer Scott says, Richard, good luck on your tests. To Richard Silvio, he'll be fine. John McDonough, our good friend John McDonough from City Life, who's on every morning from 6 to 8, Facebook Live. Look it up, John McDonough. I've been a guest on that a few times, and I'm sure to be a guest on there again. So that's a shout out to John McDonough, who does a great show with a bunch of people who are very intellectual. They are stimulating. They sometimes very controversial, as we have seen in the past. So it's a good thing to get on that. And then Joey Bigos. Absolutely, give us a call anytime you want, Joey. You're welcome to call. And you know what? If you want, jump in the car and come on down. We'll put you on the air tonight. If not, give us a call. And we have Linda. She's watching us, Linda Conley. And Angela said, somebody just graduated from the Vogue. Who are you talking about, Angela? Tell us what you do. And Jimmy Flynn is watching. And Jimmy Flynn says hello to all the guys. And Phil, you've got the next round of Facebook.
Okay. I'll
shout outs, because people love to hear their name shout out. Right. So let's get into this situation that we have. Gordy, right? Yes. Do you have some statistical data for us on the election?
Let me bring that up for you.
I had to take a little sip.
Hopefully I can make this a little bigger so people can see it.
And I've got a lot of things to say, obviously, about the voter turnout. There was 30,188 people in town, right, Phil? That's what the latest population number is that I got off the town website. Now, that fluctuates sometimes, back and forth. We have a total registered voters of 23,116. And the total vote on May 8th was only an abysmal 2,254 voters. That's with, 5 days of early voting?
5 days of early voting, yeah.
If that isn't...
And through a weekend. So it wasn't just 5 weekdays. It was Saturday and Sunday and then 4 weekdays.
That equates to 9.75% of the actual voters. Is that abysmal?
Yeah,
or what?
That is pretty bad.
It's really sad, because what I think it is, and you can all speak, jump in here and tell me whether I'm right or wrong, but I think that you have 2,500 core voters. We've known that for years. we've been in these elections for many, many times. There's usually between 25 and 3,200. If you're getting 3,200, then you know there's enough people in there that are going to make a change, that will make a difference. But when you get down to 25 or under, you got those 2,500 who are involved in town in some way. They have a connection to the town, and they have a connection to what's happening in the Dracut area, right? So they are involved with someone who's a town worker, a town employee, a school teacher, or has had...
Or the candidate directly.
Or the candidate directly.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, Phil, has a beef with somebody, has a beef with us, has a beef with you, has a beef with them, and they're all involved emotionally. That's what drives them to the polls. There are other things that drives them to the polls. People calling you, things. You did robocalls. You did a bunch of stuff a lot differently than you have in the past.
No, and private calls also. I make calls, text messaging throughout the day. Certainly, it was certainly a different campaign than I had in the past.
Sure. So, Phil, before we get into any of the numbers, because we're going to go and evaluate the numbers according to who got what, all the way down on all the races, including my race, by the way, and we'll get through that whole thing somehow. So, tell us what you felt on Saturday, how it was going, and things of that nature.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who came out to vote. It's part of the civic duty and responsibility, and I'd want to thank everybody who voted for me, who voted for Joe, left it blank, did a write-in. Thank you very much for coming out. Throughout the day, I think you could tell that the energy out on the corners was pretty high, and we were feeling pretty good. It didn't feel so good at 8:15.
No, it didn't. It didn't feel that good.
No, but
look to unseat an incumbent in a small race. It's always hard to do, and the incumbent always has the advantage one way or another. To me, the race was defined by a number of issues, Gordy. And there are some disappointed people out there today, and they're certainly going to pay the price, because we know how gracious Mr. Dracut is. And in fact, I'm going to ask Nate to show a little piece we put together this afternoon on the graciousness of Joe Dracut in victory.
This one was probably one of the worst that I've been through. It shows why there are a lot of people who just won't run because they don't want to put their families through it. We had a low turnout. I think it was because, I think people are pretty happy with what's going on in town. I think if you look, I think our town is in pretty good shape. We got some infrastructure and that type of stuff to get resolved. So I think the people must be happy in what's happening. But I've told my family this will be my last term on the board. But we need, so in saying that, we need to get some younger people involved. I tried before I decided to run, to do that. But the negativity out there, it's unreal. You got a DATV show led by John Zimini, Phil Thibault Gordy Scott, that just throws lies out there. They make false accusation. They use DATV as a weapon. It's tough. I have a friend of 40 years, Warren Shaw, same thing. He uses CAP as a weapon. We had the firefighters this time. It was the same. I guess they forgot about the brotherhood. I got through it. I think I'm thick. I've got thick skin, probably more than most. But if we want younger people to get involved, we have to do something about it. I wish I could tell exactly what the answer is. I really don't know.
We're back. Gordy, what have you got to say about that?
Well, Joe was very, he came out there and said that, there was a show down at Dracut Access TV, but he forgot to mention a couple other shows that are down here that attacked my good friend Phil Thibault. For example, Brian Genest has a show called Eye on Dracut, which he had no problem attacking Phil's campaign. And there was another show called The Dracut Connection, which Joe Dracut himself appeared on, and Brian Bond was spreading lies against Phil about what happened down here at Dracut Access TV. So I'm going to just mark that as pot calls kettle black.
Yeah, exactly.
But and then his good friend, obviously Brian Genest, was out there. As I said, he was campaigning for him. I had posted a innocent message on my personal page on Friday, said please, reminding everyone to vote from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday. I said please vote for Phil, vote for Joe Wilkie, vote for Rebecca Duda, and vote for John Zimini. So at midnight on Saturday, Brian Genest wrote on my page, 6 losses in a row for the big loser, hashtag Dr. Evil. So I wrote back to Brian and I said, Phil is a God-fearing man. Obviously you are not. And so I said, again, pot calls kettle black, hashtag Dr. Evil back at him. And he, within a couple hours, removed that post so no one could see it. So I think these people, like to cast aspersions on other people. What we're doing here is we just showed the video. We didn't say Joe was a bad person. We just put his words up. He attacked us. He mentioned us, but he didn't mention the other names. Why is that? Because they're on your side, not against you? So just because we didn't vote for you, you have to attack us? And then I also find it interesting that Allison is now the chairman of the Board of Selectmen when Brian was the biggest proponent. The husband is the biggest proponent of Joe Dracut. So was that just by chance, or was that a political payback to say, Brian, for helping out, I'm going to put your wife in the chair? Again, is there anything wrong with that? Maybe not. But obviously he had the support of the police department this year. So I personally think, you guys may disagree, but I think one of the reasons for that is that Joe will now go after the police chief. With any power that he has, he's going to try to get him out of there because it was kind of a backroom discussion with the police department to get their support. Because obviously we know the fire department wasn't supporting Joe, so he needed another group. I'm not trying to spread lies. It's just my opinion. I think that's what's going to happen. Maybe it's not the case. Maybe Joe won't attack the police chief. I don't know. My guess is based on his past history, I think he will. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if I'm right.
So, Phil, what do you say about that? I mean, you immediately posted a congratulatory message on Facebook to Joe Dracut.
Yeah.
As did I. I congratulated all the winning candidates that night. So, but we weren't, the doors on the polls were not closed 30 seconds. And these guys were posting things on there. Brian Genest, they were all... that other guy, that crazy guy, I can't even remember his name right now, who I had to just he actually told me that he got 500 people to come out to vote. This is how big some people feel. I can't think of any of us here that thinks we got personally 500 people to come out and vote. You're a candidate.
I'm lucky to get the 3 people in my house to come out. And who knows if they vote for you.
I think you're that important that you can get so many people to go out and vote. I mean,
if he got 500 votes to come out, I mean, why wasn't the number in the 3,000 range?
Well, because they all voted for Joe, according to him.
Well, if that's the case, then Joe's base has really gone down low. If you throw those 500 in.
Well, we can get into that too, because we're going to get into the numbers. But for 17 years, Joe DeRocco and I have had a very, very rocky relationship. And there's never going to be any love between the two of us. There never has been. He's lied about me and said things about me for many, many years. His whole group down there at Lucky's, they have perpetuated problems with me and trying to produce lies about me for 17 years. So it doesn't surprise me that it continued 30 seconds after the doors were closed. But Phil, you were a gracious candidate.
And I think it gets to one of the points that Gordy had said when he accused us of lying and putting out lies. But as Gordy said, all we did is we showed video of Joe DeRocco saying exactly what he said and what he meant. And when he's talking with the firefighters and he's demanding an apology from them, well, we're not lying about that. That's what Joe said.
It's not our words; it's his own words.
There are some comments on here from. Joey Bigo says that they're false in their lies, some of the things that they say about us. Joey, we appreciate that. You've only known us for a little bit of a time, and they're even spreading lies about you guys that you are related to me somehow. You and Richard, which if you heard the beginning of the show, I mentioned that, which is a total farce. But they just throw out anything, and it's the Nancy Pelosi idea of throw out the smear and let people run with it, right?
Well, even worse than that is it's all projection. So they throw out the smear that they're actually guilty of.
Exactly.
Right.
And to kind of deflect it and project it to somebody else.
Right. Anything that we presented.
It's gaslighting at its best.
Right. Exactly. So Greg says that, I'm not going to repeat this, but I'll just say that Brian, Greg said something about that Brian knelt down before Joe DeRocco and brought him on the show. Now, please, there's not a bigger disappointment in my life than the 15-year relationship I had with Brian Bond. There's not a bigger disappointment that I couldn't have been a better judge of character than I was with my relationship with Brian Bond. And Gordy, I'm not going to speak for you, but we were all told time and time again by very close friends of ours about that man, and I kept a relationship with him and a friendship with him. But you know what? The man to me is just a waste of time. And, I didn't really prepare to come here and say anything about him, but somebody mentioned it here, so...
Well, I'll just jump in quick. I have no problem with Brian. I don't think he's a bad... I mean, I was friends with him. Hopefully I can still talk with him. Again, I don't want to say anything bad about anyone, but, I saw the details. I'm kind of in the middle, as you guys know. All of us were on Brian's show. And I heard from all sides. I was actually talking to Brian more than you guys during the whole issue when Brian was removed from Dracut Access TV. So I was kind of in the middle. I didn't know where. I talked to you. I talked to Phil. I talked to Brian. I got everyone's take on what was going on. And as you know, I was on the connection for several times. And after speaking with my wife, I actually left the show because of the attacks that were happening. And my wife, believe me, we have a great marriage. We have a great relationship. So if I'm doing something wrong, she's going to tell me. And if she's doing something wrong, I'm going to tell her. So if I was doing anything wrong on this show, she wouldn't let me come on the show because we're partners. And Brian says she pulls my strings. Obviously, yeah. When you have a good marriage, maybe your wife doesn't pull your strings, but maybe you don't have a good marriage. That's how to me, that's how a good marriage works. So we talk to each other. We tell each other's secrets. So, she tells me if we're doing something wrong in the show, she'll say, that was wrong. And I haven't heard her say that once. So,
yeah. So I mean, enough with that. Enough with him, anyways. But Brian Genest is a whole other story. Brian Genest is the guy who is. I don't know many people that have met him that end up staying friends with him very long. They could be out there, and I mean, every circle that he's in, there is a bunch of people that have said some things about him being a nasty, vile person. Just look what he wrote about you, Phil, in the Valley Patriot. And he wrote about me.
And Rich Cowan.
And he wrote about my children and my wife. And, you know, I've never hidden that I gave money. I gave plenty of money to politicians over the years, legally and documented. And, you know, I gave it to Republicans, I give it to Democrats. I'm sure he does, I'm sure they do, and give it legally above the board, and we're accounted for it.
Yep.
But to bring children into it, and your children and your wife into it, they accuse us of attacking their families. I don't ever remember attacking anybody's families. And but that's how they try to deflect and throw the smear out. The bottom line is that, you know, he's a vile guy, and people will find out about him if you don't already know. And there's more to come, I'm sure, as we move forward. But let's talk about the numbers, and I'm sure we're going to get back, we're going to circle around to the weaponization of DATV later on in the show. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the graciousness. But people without class just don't have.
Before we get into the numbers, why don't we give a shout out to a few more people?
Yep.
Greg is watching. Kevin Tully is on with us. Dave Willett, our health inspector.
Oh, very good.
He's on. Great. Roma, nice to see you. And it's Angel, not Angela.
Yeah, I didn't say Angela, did I?
You did. I think you did, yeah.
You know what?
I thought it was somebody else you were talking about.
I call my daughters by different names too. Angel, I'm sorry.
Angel, he's getting a little old.
Angel, I'm yeah.
Sorry to say, John.
We know that. We know that.
See, now I'm even attacking John now.
Am I losing my?
Supposedly, I'm attacking John by calling him old, right?
You're gonna get everybody that's old,
right?
Saying
right.
He attacked the elderly.
He attacked the elderly.
Attacked the elderly.
Right.
So, anyways, if you're interested in getting into the fray here, call us at 978-957-4243. We'd be happy to bring you on. Let's talk a little bit about the numbers, Phil.
Okay.
Okay. So we had 2,254 people vote in an election on a Saturday that was moved around, moved from a was it a Monday to a Tuesday?
Monday
to a Saturday, all because the Department of Ed didn't want the schools to be used because of COVID. Is that
my understanding is that they were not going to allow the teachers to have a professional day also,
Okay.
so that would have essentially closed the schools.
Right. So, and by doing that, they had to change it. Now, conveniently, Gordy, would you think that moving the election from the traditional day, where maybe 2,500 to 3,200 people know that it's traditionally the first Monday in May, moving it from that date to the Sunday, you think that suppressed any of the vote?
I think so. The Friday before the vote, my wife and I went for a walk down to Veterans Park. We were campaigning for Phil. Talking to people, asking them if they knew that the election was coming up. They said, and a majority of the people we talked to had no idea that they could even vote. They didn't want anything to do with politics. I spoke to probably about 40 people, and only two of them said, I thought the election was, actually one said Tuesday and one said Monday. So I reminded them, no, it's tomorrow in person. So I just think that was, and usually when you drive by, they have the big signs, vote today. I don't know. I think I did affect it slightly, yes. But I just think the biggest problem is people don't care.
Well, we're going to get into that. We could certainly talk
unless
about it now.
Unless there's something that says we're going to raise your taxes, we're going to put in a trash fee, or we're going to reduce the funding to schools, then you're going to get people to come out. Something that a ballot question that's going to make people come out because they really feel strongly about something. But if it's just replace this guy with this guy, or I just don't think people care enough.
Yeah.
And like you said, back in the beginning of the show, you said that there's about 1,000 people to 1,500 people that run this town because they always vote. It's the same people that vote.
Well, Joe DeRocco got probably the lowest vote he's ever gotten as a candidate for selectman. I could go back to the time when he got the biggest vote that he could have gotten during a presidential election. He was fresh out of the box, new to politics, but not new to the town. A lot of people knew him. A lot of people appreciated what he had done in the fire service, I'm sure. I ran against him. He got maybe 1,500 votes more than me in a presidential election, and I got nearly 5,500 votes, where that was, probably the most of any losing candidate in the history of the town. So, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Makes us the better for it. But his low vote is not, in my opinion, a mandate for him to go sticking his chest out and crowing like a rooster that he's the chosen one, because the bottom line is he only got 1,176 votes, and that only represented that's only 5.08% of the total electorate. So if all 23,000 people came out, that vote would have equated to that. Now I know that it gets bigger, but you can't think that all 23,000 are going to come out and say you're the best thing since sliced bread, right? And and so don't go around crowing that that you've got a mandate, because you don't have a mandate when only 9% of the electorate is coming out in a COVID year, in a year when we had a pandemic, in a year where people moved the election around, they changed the election, and there were things done that just weren't right in my view. And you can sit back and not do anything, folks. You can sit back and complain that your street isn't clean, or your garbage isn't picked up, or you don't like how your water rate is going up, or your tax rate is going up, until you decide that you are going to take a stand and be involved in your local elections. You're doomed to what you have now. And you'll have a government that'll do whatever they want because they can, because you don't care. I've always been one to be involved.
And Phil, you and I talked about this on election day, is that people tend to come out on presidential elections when their vote carries a lot less weight than it would in a local level. Do you want to talk
so
about?
I mean, if you want to call it the bright and shiny object presidential election, I mean, you have nationwide coverage of it, and but your vote has, to some degree, very little impact, especially with the system that we have with an electoral college. So it goes to the state if the state wins, and then your vote does not telegraph all the way through to the president.
Doesn't have as much weight, right?
Correct. You vote in a local election, your vote telegraphs directly to the candidate.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So Gordy, you have a lot of friends that are younger than myself. You're in a younger sphere, even though your son is getting older now and he's graduating from college and the whole 9 yards. And now you're trying to get him off the dole so you can start saving for those years when you were in the walker. But the bottom line is, the people that you surround yourself with or you go out with, do many of them vote?
No.
They don't.
They don't vote.
They don't.
I mean, I'm just being, I'm nothing against them.
No.
But they're not complaining either that their taxes are high or what have you. Most people just aren't plugged in to what's going on in the town, and they just kind of go home, go to work, mow their grass, take care of their house, and just keep on living. The thing is I was the same boat. To be honest, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I didn't really care about. I have a house, I have my kids to take care of. But then as you get a little bit older, you start caring about, like, hey, what's going on in the town? Who's running? Why is this happening? Why are we spending millions of dollars over here when that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me? That's when you start getting involved. It kind of drives you crazy when you see some of the decisions that some people make. So, but like you said, most people just don't care.
No, so really. there is certainly a level of apathy that goes with it. And so, yes, there are a lot of people who don't vote. There's a good number of them will complain quietly about, how come they're not doing this, or the schools, or the trash, or DPW. But they're willing to tolerate the government they have. And life lesson, you cannot change what you tolerate.
That's right. That's right. Now, Phil, do you think that voter apprehension or voter what was the word you just used? It went right over my head now.
Apathy?
Apathy. Voter apathy can equate to, oh, the town's doing great. Do you think that can be equated to that? The town, according to Joe, the low voter turnout is because they're happy with what's going on in town.
Apathy is exactly that. They don't care one way or the other.
Because it doesn't. Gordy hit it on the head when he said that they don't really come out until it really affects them. That's true. You and I have been involved in politics. I've been involved in politics since I was 8 years old, so it's in my blood. So comes a point in your life where you got to say to yourself, is it worth it all? Is it worth it being your head bashed in and talking to people, trying to convince people what's going on behind the scenes isn't right? Is it worth it? Is it worth it, Gordy?
I mean, I guess I was brought up to. My mother and father always told me do the right thing. That's how I live my life, is try to always do the right thing. So when you see things happening, and that, if you remember years back, I put up a warrant article to lower the CPA tax. Now I'm for the CPC and the CPA.
Well, you're not. People don't think you are.
I know, but I actually,
you are.
I actually think it's a good thing.
It is a good
But
thing.
when you spend almost $1 million, $850,000 on a bathroom, and you want to spend millions of dollars on a property that you can't even walk on because it's just putting a restriction on a deed, I don't agree. I don't think that's the right thing to do. So, that's the reason I did that, is because I was trying to send a message to say, hey, wake up. Let's do things like the property on the Beaver Brook property. I think that was great because, it's a huge piece of land, and we will at someday I think we'll be able to use it. But and the Maconesby Park was great. Veterans Park is great. Things like that are excellent because people use that kind of stuff. It's the things that don't get used much. Like, it drives me crazy, the bathrooms by the skateboard park. They lock them. They can't. I mean, they use them for the softball.
You mean the skateboard park that doesn't get 3 people a year?
Right.
To
Exactly.
go in?
That's the stuff that drives me crazy. Like, why we spent that? We're just blowing money out the door.
Yeah. It's just,
And the town hall that we spent money on, which is supposedly happening, but it's been 5 years that we've give 3 different rounds of CPC money to that nothing's happening yet.
you're talking about Spring Park?
Yeah.
Spring Park Ave. That's
Which I've heard rumors are they're going to start working on that building, but it's been many years.
There is a construction fence around the property, so it must
how
be.
much are we into for that building?
I think it's almost $3 million.
Yeah, $3
$3
million.
million we've
Yeah,
put
so
into
the
that.
value of the building, which was I think $300 and almost $400,000, and there was $200,000 for historical preservation,
yeah.
and then I think the town threw in another. Was it $2 million or a little less?
1
than
point
that?
something,
Yeah.
7 or something. Yeah.
So we have a couple more comments here, and your wife says, always do the right thing.
Yep.
And you know what? We're always trying to do the right thing. It's the other side that doesn't like what we're doing because we're a threat. We are a threat to them. We're
Well,
a
just
threat to
because
them
we point out when they don't do the right thing, we point it out.
Right, exactly.
They want you to just be quiet and just let them do it.
And that's why, we'll get into this a little bit later, there's an attack on the Finance Committee chairman, whom I have historically not gotten along with for much of our friendships and relationships. We have a lot of differences. We go in different cycles, different circles. We happen to have been in the right side this time. He supported you.
He's a very smart guy, by the way.
He's very intelligent, but sometimes intelligence doesn't equate to being right all the time, for sure.
Correct.
And it doesn't always equate to being common sense.
Right.
But in this case, so Angela is saying that
Angel.
I said it again, Angel, you're saying about the COVID fears were part of the suppression of the vote, which is true. We have Keith Titus who's watching us, and Angel says that the public, we didn't publicize it enough, the vote, and she.
That's
and
a
I
good
believe
point.
it, Angel.
That's a good point.
Very good point. And Angel, you're absolutely right that we do need charter review. The document itself is is 30, 40 years old now. When I was on the Board of Selectmen, we tried to do charter review, and of course they rebuffed it because they don't want anything tinkering with their ball game. So they don't want any tinkering with the ball game. So what did they do? They tinkered with it with little things. They put in little changes and sent it over to the legislature, which is really backdooring what you say is the purest form of government, right?
Yep.
You can tinker with it, but not anybody else can tinker with it, right? So that's what they were doing, anyways. And it's still. I'm not gonna tell people, Angel, that you admit to being 21. And what else? And she's echoing you. And when somebody mentioned the name Angela, it was on it was a political advertisement that came to her house. It was the wrong name.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think it was you, Phil.
No.
I don't think it was you. So that's just a couple more things that people are saying out there. Let's get into some more of the numbers. So, Phil, you got 1,042 votes, which equated to about 46% of the vote. And Joe got 52% of the vote, not a blowout by any stretch of the imagination, Joe. Not a blowout. It's a matter of 134 votes. One way or another, and if you split that in half, if you split it right down the middle, it's only a matter of 75 votes that changes it.
Yep.
Right. So, Phil, some of your thoughts going forward. Let's just for a minute. Let's back up. Is there anyone that you would like to, any groups or anybody you want to thank for helping you the way you did?
Well, certainly the firefighters were a big help. They were very active, very enthusiastic, and they brought a lot of energy to the campaign, which I was grateful for. For the most part, the school committee too. I mean, I think all of them. Joe Wilkie, of course, was running, so he's not going to endorse somebody.
Yeah.
I had the endorsement of former committee woman Betsy Murphy, Allison Volpe, Renee Young. Certainly endorsed me. So
Richard Silvio was out there all day.
Richard Silvio, So I suppose that gets into a comment that Joe made that these younger kids younger people aren't interested in getting into politics because apparently we're nasty. But if you look at the age group of my campaign help and his, I think you find out that my campaign was fairly youthful.
Right.
And some of them were very young.
Ezekiel was out there all day.
Zeke was fabulous, and he confided in me that he wasn't sure about getting involved, and after listening to me on a couple of items, he enthusiastically got involved. He reached out
there
to
all
me
day
and
long,
said, "What can I do?"
Yep.
There's a gentleman that I told him. I went up to him and I said, he and kids like Richard Silvio and Joey Bigos. He's the reason I do what I do. And we all say we do things because we want to worry about the future for our grandchildren. I'm on the other side of the hill, right? And the hill is really steep going back, going down. So it's not going to affect me as much as it's going to affect them. And that's why I really like the idea of having people like Zeke and Richard and Joey and people like Renee Young and Allison Volpe. Those people they hold the future of Dracut.
Right.
And for them to put their names and their time out on the line for Phil, there's a price they're going to pay. And unfortunately, that's the way of the world in politics today, particularly in Dracut politics. It's always been that way. I remember when I went to ask Tammy Dristolaris, who's a good attorney in town, comes from a very good family. Her husband George and the family, very big family in town, and have a lot of roots with the Greek community. I went to her and I said to her, I'm leaving the board, and you ran the last time, lost, but I'd like to have you come in and kind of take over the mantle and put somebody on there that's not part of the cabal, so to speak. And when she did it knowing that there was going to be some bad things done. And again, that same group who cannot let go, who cannot release their venom, or cannot stop releasing their venom, they went after her. And they did it in the way of anonymous letters that they sent out, like they did with me. And I mean, it even struck Warren Shaw to make a comment on the radio the other day, or maybe it was a post. Was it a post that he said something about people will not stop, certain people will not stop? Was it a post on
I believe
Facebook?
it was a post, yeah.
Yeah, some people will not stop because they do not want to lose their power in town, and they'll stoop to whatever they have to do by lying and cheating and doing whatever they have to do. So, I'm paraphrasing what he said, so I don't want to put words in his mouth or anything, but people can go back and look at it. For him and I to be on the same page, that's pretty much, in the years that I've known Warren Shaw, we've been friends a few more than we've been enemies, but and I don't really consider it an enemy as much as I consider it a disagreement on many, many levels. So there are a couple things that come out of this election that I feel for me has made a difference. Making friends with Joey Bigos and Richard, their families, their extended families, Zeke, Heather Santiago's daughter,
Yep.
a young lady that I met when she was in a carriage. She was only maybe a couple of years old when I first started running. She's now in college, and her mom, Heather, supported my candidacy, and mainly because of my opposition and handling of a cell phone tower in her neighborhood. And her and I became friends. So those are the types of reconnections. My reconnection with Betsy Murphy.
Yes.
That's another,
John,
to me, is another
if I
big
can
thing.
just jump in and give you a compliment
Sure.
here. I called you old earlier, so I got to make up for it.
Okay.
I think it's the same reason you coach, right? You don't have to coach. You don't need to do it, but I think you do it to change young people's lives. And I think that's the reason you do what you do with this show, is to call things that are wrong and to make a positive change in people that live here. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, so much like John's coaching, and I've had a number of parents here in Dracut that their children were interested in perhaps going into architecture for college, and they
Right.
wondered if I would take some time to spend with them just to answer some questions. I said, absolutely, whatever time you want. Name the time you want to meet me, and I'll make time available. So, I mean, I've always thought that mentoring the youth, especially in my profession as architect, very important.
Exactly. Zeke is watching us, by the way. Hi, Zeke.
Hey,
again. We
Zeke.
just made some real good compliments about you. Stay involved, Zeke. Stay involved. And
He's a good kid.
He's a great kid, And I don't even know his politics. I don't really care. He's a good kid.
Right. It doesn't
and
matter.
he's involved. It
Doesn't
doesn't matter. We can have differences on every level you want to have them, but we should never get to the point where we don't talk to each other, because then you get to the point where things happen.
Yeah.
And the divide becomes very much greater than it should be in so many ways. I like to say I have two personas. I have the political persona and I have the coaching persona. And in the coaching persona, all of my friends say to me, Zim, why do you do that? Why do you let yourself get beat up like that? And I say that if I don't, who will?
Right.
And if I don't speak my piece now, I don't profess myself to be right on all issues, and I don't profess myself to be wrong on many issues either. I mean, so I'm one of these people who's right down the middle, but the bottom line is that I need to say what I'm going to say when I want to say it, and no one's going to stop me from saying it. And that's what the other side wants you to do. You've got guys like Brian Genest, you've got Joe DeRocco, who I wasn't even in town for 3 or 4 years, right? And I would get calls from people saying, well, Joe went after you again, mentioning my name during a selectman meeting. You want to talk about weaponizing something?
He'll continue.
So I guess my question there, because at no point prior to him mentioning your name does he say a point of personal privilege.
No.
So he's mentioning your name, my name, Gordy's name, as an official of the town,
Exactly.
which I find disturbing.
Well, it is disturbing. You know, if you look at the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen, and it might be true in a lot of towns, is run pretty loosely, you know? I mean, they speak before they make motions. They don't follow Robert's rules in any way.
When they just assigned the chair and the vice chair, there was no second.
Yeah. I don't believe a nomination has
nominations
to be seconded.
don't need to be seconded.
But usually,
Yeah.
the clerk had a second. But
Right.
my point is, it wasn't standard. So the chair and the vice chair, there was no seconds, but the clerk, there was a second. So they weren't.
And you know, I predicted that. I predicted that move.
Yeah, we
Did I
talked-
not say
Yep.
that on Saturday? Exactly what would happen if he got reelected?
And that's why I think the same thing's going to happen with the police.
Well, we have a different opinion there because I think the police chief has doesn't have to have a professional contract. He has a benefits contract, and that contract doesn't have anything to do with time. He's under civil service like any other member, and he would have to be removed for cause. And they may make his life miserable, but he has mechanisms at his disposal to make their life miserable too, and he's already put them in play by suing them, by talking about different things that they've denying him the right to come back to work when he was ready to come, all that kind of stuff. Those are all things that are going to be adjudicated, and he's going to win. It's as simple as that. But that's the politics of Dracut, and we'll see where that goes.
Just real quick, back on the numbers. I'm in actually precinct 7, and I was really ashamed that we only had 6% of the vote in precinct 7. Actually, that was one that you won.
That
Phil.
is, and so it's typically a precinct that I've done well in.
And precinct 1 was lower; it was 6.0%. Mine was 6.5%. So, and you lost precinct 1 by 6. I think you won precinct 4 by 1 vote and precinct 7 by 20. So,
wow, that's amazing too. Yeah. So, I mean, the votes were. Let's just give you an example, folks. In precinct 1, there are 2,466 votes. And you want to talk about an abysmal 149 people came out and voted. And then in 7, you got 2,507
and
162. I mean, that's the same across the board. It's right around 5 or 6% of the vote. It was driven up in precinct 8.
6A was the highest, 31.25. That's the 96 people.
But even that, there's 96 people and only 30 people voted.
Right.
That
was the highest one, 31%.
And it's a short walk to get there.
Yeah, it's a short walk.
Crazy. It's craziness. And everybody puts such a big emphasis on elderly. It's not that elderly 6A that's the most important. Although it is important, you need to talk to those people. But the bottom line is that precinct's not going to make or break you. 96 votes aren't going to make or break you. It's the elderly population across the town that makes a huge difference. Because they're all in their sunset years, they're all on fixed incomes, and when you raise taxes, raise the water bill, raise the sewer rate.
That affects their bottom line.
It affects the bottom line.
They feel it more than anyone else.
It hurts
Oh
them
yeah,
the most.
their disposable income is so much less than anybody else
The
because they
biggest-
really have no disposable income.
The biggest surprise to me, though, John, and you can probably talk to this, is the school committee. I was surprised that Rebecca Duda topped the ticket.
We were
over
just
Joe
going to
Wilkie.
get into those numbers. I didn't do the percentages, but there's 2 votes there, folks. There were 2 to be elected. I figured that Joe Wilkie was going to blow that field away because he's very popular among a lot of the sports figures in town, a lot of the sports programs. He's very popular on how he has presented himself at the board, at the school board. But I do know there is some real underlying stuff out there between former members of the board, not Murphy, but other members of the board that rubbed them the wrong way, that they did not like Joe. And for whatever reason, and I think that some of it was because when Joe was chairman, he kept control of the meetings and didn't acquiesce to somebody just because of their gender or their whatever, right? And we can get into that too. And people use that sometimes, or because of their political stance. He just kept things in line, and some people took offense to that. You heard about some of that stuff, right?
Yeah, honestly, it didn't have to necessarily deal with gender, although they may pull that out as being an issue.
Yeah.
I served with Joe on the town manager screening committee. Wonderful gentleman. I was grateful to have him on that committee.
Yeah. We're going to give a little shout out here. Like I said, Zeke is watching. Bob Hoey, nice to have you watching. My friend Bob Hoey, and then we still have Angela. We got about 16 or 17 people still watching. I'm sure the other side is watching to make sure that what we're going to do, that they can scream about and do what they want to do. But that's good. So we want to talk a little bit about the numbers. Rebecca Duda had 1,494 votes.
Which was 33%. I got the percentage.
Very good, 33%. I didn't.
IT guy's right on it, John.
You're right. You're on it. I was kind of nervous earlier in the day when I didn't hear from you. But when you talk about Joe Wilkie, what was his percentage?
32%.
32%. So you couldn't get it much closer than that. And I think Rebecca Duda didn't do much in terms of campaigning. I think Joe also didn't do much, and they relied on the fact that there were two positions open, and the third candidate, Rosemary Espinal, we screw that name up every time. Yeah. Espinal, she got 564 votes.
Which is 12.5%.
12.5%. And
the blanks came in third.
She really did nothing. Well, that's because there's a lot of bullet votes thrown around.
Right.
Now, what do you attribute Rebecca Duda's high vote for?
I just think it's name recognition. She's written books about Dracut. She was a popular teacher at the Dracut High School when she was here. So, I think that she got those votes just from that.
How about you, Phil? What do you think it was?
Well, I think along those same lines. Joe, of course, came into the race fairly late.
Yeah.
And he had some family matters. His mother had passed away, so I think that delayed him getting nomination papers and finally getting in. That I'm not sure if that would have delayed, or shown up in the number of votes. But certainly Rebecca, a very well-known name, not only through the schools but through the Varnum Award. Rebecca usually does something with the Varnum Award. So
Kevin Telly says that more people voted for schools than they did for the selectmen. Well, I think it's still the same amount of people. But they had two votes, so that makes a difference.
Right.
And you're right. More people did. There was more of a split there.
There's 2254 total, and then
two votes makes a big difference.
So I think you if you look at the selectman race, you'll notice that the number of blanks were very low.
27, right?
And the number of write-ins were very low. So
9,
I mean, if you were coming out, you were voting for a selectman
that
one way or the other.
1.59% of the total vote.
Yeah.
So I did a little bit of homework too, Gordy.
But I was surprised there was almost 1,000 blanks, 973 blanks, which is 21.6% of the vote.
It's amazing. Now I got a question to ask both of you gentlemen. I'll start with you, Gordy. Tell me, the support that Phil got from the schools in terms of school committee members, does that equate into a problem for the schools when it comes to budgetary time with guys like Joe, who's a vindictive guy?
I think it may. I'm glad I watched portions of the selectmen's meeting, and I think hopefully that Ann will buffer that a little bit. We'll hope she does. I did notice that they're going to take some money from the marijuana that they're getting and put that towards the schools.
$360,000.
Yeah, it was $360,000 to offset the cost of sports and bus fees. So next year, people won't have to pay for the bus or pay for sports. So that will be a very popular. I can tell you right now, that'll be a very popular town meeting warrant article.
So Phil, there's a lot of talk about the marijuana money. What was the estimates that you heard during the election and beyond were the estimates for what we think is coming in from the marijuana?
Well, I think just recently they had some $70,000 or $80,000 out of the first quarter. So,
I thought it was $1.2 million.
that could be the
So
total.
$1.2 million.
with all 4 dispensaries up
Right.
and operational.
So $360,000 is a third,
Right.
right? Where I thought, and you thought it too, Phil, I mean, I'm not speaking for you, but I thought a majority of the marijuana money should have been dedicated to schools, and not only for the busing, and not only for,
But that's a good way to
For-
put, I think that's a good place to put it.
yeah, I'm not saying it's not, but a better place would be to put it in the classroom, because the classroom is where everything is most needed.
Right.
And if you have any knowledge from school teachers, they're hurting in the classroom.
Oh, it's not
hurting.
just the classroom. It's the guidance counselors and a lot of the support staff that the students are relying on, adjustment teachers and stuff like that.
But it's good, it will go back, that will make the money go back to the taxpayers, so the people that pay for sports fees and for the bus fees.
So essentially, there you're paying for the school experience rather than the
Right.
education.
Right. But I mean, it does, because right now that comes out of the taxpayer's pocketbook.
Oh,
so,
it all comes out of one pocket or the other.
right,
It's how well do you want to spend it?
right.
So, Phil, I'm going to ask your opinion. Do you think that Renee Young, who's a young and upcoming person in the school committee, and she does a wonderful job, very intelligent, very easy to talk to, do you think that somebody like her and Allison Volpe are hurt on the school side by maybe somewhere down the line in terms of funding for the schools where they may not get more than what they should?
I think that certainly someone like Joe will, as you said before about a mandate, we'll see that as a mandate that we're spending enough on schools.
Right.
So we're looking at net school spending being the bare minimum, but that's what people are saying is sufficient money.
So we did not ask that question on the Board of Selectmen as to what you feel the people who had supported you. You had the support of Tony Archinsky, who was right out there, all the way out there, doing his thing for you. I mean, that, in my mind, alone took courage.
Oh, absolutely. And again, there's another person that I really need to thank is Tony Archinsky. He gave me some guidance. He was certainly out there helping me. Heather was helping me. Former select woman Tammy Dristilaris was certainly helping me. I'm thankful for all of them. Yeah, I think. I mean, they. I guess somewhat selfishly, I'll say they knew what they were getting in for.
Yeah, that's for sure. But now there's an election that's coming up again, because we have one every year, which I think is absurd. That's one of the things that should change in the charter, and it would change a stranglehold of any group on the majority of the board, because the group that's known as the cabal, they have their fingers in every single election for selectmen, because that's where their power lies. And as long as they can have 3 votes, and you saw it when they voted for the chairman the other day, they just powered right through it, and the other 2 knew they didn't have a chance at it, and they just, go along with it because there's no other way of getting around it. It's going to happen, right?
Right.
So the bottom line is, in order to break that kind of a mold, you need to have the election on the same day for all of the candidates, for all of the seats, make them 3-year terms, make them 5, expand it if you want to more participation, and you'll get a more representative government than you have today. You have a representation government here that is really one-sided. It's really one-sided until that charter's changed, and I don't know if we're going to see it in my lifetime or in your lifetime, Phil. Maybe in Gordy's, because he's a youngster here. But the bottom line is we need to change that charter to reflect that, so that they can break the stranglehold. Because if all 5 members of the board, or whatever number you come up with, are running at the same time, no one camp will be able to get out and elect a majority of the board and have a stranglehold.
No, and certainly the thought that you lose some institutional knowledge by running everybody at the same time is absolutely false.
Right.
If somebody has some good experience on that board, they'll get reelected.
Lowell does it.
That's right.
Lowell runs all
Rita
at the same
Mercia
time. You
tops
know?
the ticket every
So,
time.
I don't, that institutional knowledge mantra is just
No,
crap,
it's-
in plain English.
I don't know
It's
if you
just
saw
crap.
the news today, John, but they're trying to do that in the Senate as well. It's trying to get change how we control elections
Yeah.
in the country. So that was at a stalemate today.
Well, that's where it's going to be. It'll stay that way on that level. So let's talk a little bit more about. Oh, one more thing I wanted to throw out there. I've heard from a very reliable source that there is a school committee person that is floating her name as a candidate for selectman. She'll be a great candidate. She'll be an awesome addition to the board if she's elected, because she is somebody who is not involved with the baloney and the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on, and that's Allison Volpe. She's going to be a good candidate, and I'm sure she's going to run for selectman in the next election. Now, there's all kinds of rumors still floating around about Jesse, whether or not he's going to run again, or whether or not he's going to resign to move to a new home that I think is in the works in Methuen. We'll see. We'll get more on that. We do have some documentation of a land deal that had gone down recently, and we'll bring that up in a future show. But just so that people don't forget that still is hanging out there, and I think that's another reason why you don't have Jesse as the chairman of the board now, because I think he's preoccupied with other personal stuff, which is fine. Let's talk about the library trustee, which was a non-race. Gordy, what were the votes there?
Oh, I just closed it down.
You closed it down.
Of course, you asked me, and I closed it.
Sure, of course. And that vote was Brian Flaherty. He got 1321, and Gretchen Marie Mayall got
1669.
69.
And blanks came in second with 1492.
Again, that's because of bullet votes, because there's 2 votes there. Right. So again, that was an interesting round.
Or people
Gretchen
just didn't care and they just left it blank.
Well, so Gretchen has been a trustee for quite a while, and so I mean, she had, if you want trustee recognition.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well,
So,
John, how about your
we're
campaign?
going to get into that now. Have you got those numbers up?
I don't.
You don't? Well, I have them right here, because I didn't want anybody to accuse me of hiding behind anything, because, there are a couple people still making comments out there. Gary M. Grant. No play on Cary Grant, right? Okay, he's saying, nice production, gentlemen. Thank you very much for the compliment.
He's a good friend of mine, Gary.
Is he Gary?
Yep, shout out to Gary.
Good. And have a shout out there. And Angela keeps saying charter. I think you're right. I think charter schools are the thing of the future. And I also think that not only charter schools are the thing of the future, and that doesn't mean I don't believe in public schools, because I do. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
What say you, Phil?
Absolutely. I mean, any education, it's very important. As I've said throughout the campaign, I'm only in the position I am because of my education. So I think the Dracut school system does a wonderful job. I personally went through a parish school. There was a religious education that I wanted to have with it, and that's where my kids went. But certainly, the Dracut school system is just fabulous.
Okay, I misunderstood Angela. She corrected me right away, and you're right.
Angel.
Mischaracterized her when I said charter school. She's talking about the town charter.
Town charter.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right, Angel. Charter. If we don't change the charter, we're not going to change anything in the town. So let's talk about Billy Zielinski, who obviously got reelected with 1,305 votes. And he had 252 blanks. 252 people went in there and said, I'm not voting for Billy.
Oh, they didn't care.
They didn't care, right. Right. And then we get into the moderator, the most obscure position in the town of Dracut. Folks, when I put my name on that ballot, I did it for a number of reasons. Number one was that no one was running. So I said, I'll throw my name in there. And my wife agreed for me to do that, only because she knows that it's still in my blood. But she said to me that if you do it, I want you to promise me that you're not going to spend any money on it. And I told her that, yes, I would agree to that, because I did not believe that that job is that important to me to go out and spend that kind of money, or the kind of money you'd have to win the election. But I also said to my friends, and anyone can, I don't even have, what did I say to you, Phil, about the position?
Well, you said a number of things. I'm not sure which one you're...
Just throw out whatever you...
Oh, whenever you go into a race, you're in it to win.
Yeah, I am in it to win, but I knew I wasn't going to win this race, right? And I said, Gordy, and I might have said it to you, and Phil's going to remember when I say this, I have been out of the political circle for, in terms of running for something, for over 7 years. So there's a lot of changes that have happened in town. So yes, we have a
And
talk
John,
show.
I did not vote for you.
You didn't. I know.
did not vote.
And it's
See how
disappointing.
fair we are? I didn't even vote for John Zimini.
Folks,
I didn't vote for him.
Folks, he's in the Kenwood district. He's paying double the
You're not
water.
supposed to
He's
tell
paying
that.
double the water. He wants to be in the Dracut water supply district because
Can't
it's
you
cheaper.
expand the boundaries?
Yeah. So the
And can I
bottom-
tell a quick story about
Sure.
Moose?
Sure.
Moose's bill he got.
Oh God, go right ahead.
$1,700. I feel bad for you, Moose. Was it $1,900 or $1,700?
1900.
$1,900. Moose, I won't be paying your water bill. John said he might throw in a few bucks for you.
But he did dispute it, and he did get it resolved, and I think it's a reasonable resolution to it.
That's
so
good.
he got it taken care of somehow. I got 464 votes. I didn't campaign for it, folks. And the guy,
29.2%.
yeah, and the guy that won, Dave Martin, popular name in Dracut, very popular name in the Merrimack Valley. Can you name several Martins in Lowell that have extended family in Dracut? I can. Brian Martin, former city manager, principal of the high school, or whatever you want to call him, whatever he was there. He's been around for a million years. Very popular, very much a very popular name in the
It's
town.
certainly a well-known name in Dracut.
Right.
Very
And
established.
then you have Billy Martin, who's a city councilor, was a city councilor in Lowell. Very popular. The Martin name is very popular. And I believe that Dave Martin's dad was a firefighter also, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. And I hope one
That
of my
I'm not sure.
firefighter
That I'm
friends
not sure.
who may not be watching, because to coin a phrase and not to be funny, they're burnt out from this campaign stuff, and they're obviously not going to be involved in politics very soon. Anyways, let's see. So yes, so Dave Martin's a very popular guy. He got 688 votes, and George Bogue got 329 votes.
20%.
He spent some money on the race, which to me doesn't make sense. And he tried to make it. He was on the radio.
Maybe Brian gave him some money.
Yeah.
He spent Brian's money.
I can't wait to see that campaign report. I want to see that campaign report, because if I was a betting man, that's where the money came from, right? So, anyways, that's that race, and that is it. So now let's talk. We got about 14 minutes left. We've gone through a few things. I want to talk a little bit about the weaponization of the Board of Selectmen meetings. Gordy, we've talked about this a number of times. Let's show the video where certain members of the board go after Rich Cowan for, Rich Cowan is the chairman of the Finance Committee, and he just recently got elected to the Finance Committee chair, which sent reverberations through Town Hall.
So, Finance Committee is appointed by the town moderator.
Correct. Now, when they appointed him to the town moderator appointed him to the Finance Committee, what do you think that the thinking was behind that? Because let's put the cards on the table. Rich is not the most well-liked person in Town Hall, because he's outspoken, he questions things, and he brings a different level of attention to things, and he has backup.
Well, he's somebody who can certainly scrutinize numbers incessantly.
With the best of them.
Incessantly.
Yep.
And he's
But
not going
he
to
does it
roll
well.
over.
He
If he
does it
finds
well.
something, he's not going to be politically
Yeah,
motivated to to just forget about it.
So there is an attack on him that's going to continue because they already got him removed from one committee, and that was the master plan.
Master plan committee.
So what
that's
happened
correct.
there?
On a personal Facebook page, there was a fundraiser being done by a local merchant, if you want. And Gritch had made a comment regarding the fundraising, kind of based on requirements for filings with the state and when you get to certain dollar numbers. And so he had just made a suggestion that some of that money could be diverted to another charitable organization. And they took offense to that.
Yes, but he also was objecting to how the fundraising event was advertised. And I guess the allegation is that, I don't know, Gordy, are you familiar with this at all?
I don't remember this.
Okay, so allegedly,
Because that would have been 4 or 5 years ago.
yeah, it was after the hurricane, was it?
It was after hurricane.
And they were doing some fundraising for down south to help out with down south, which is a very admirable thing to do, by the way, and no problem. But he kind of questioned what was going on and how the advertising came through the schools without anybody knowing about it, and particularly that kind of stuff never went through the schools.
Right.
It doesn't go through the schools easily. So he was questioning that, and they immediately, the town manager Jim Duggan. See, this is where I get crazy, because just because you have an opinion that's contrary to the mantra in town, they remove you from a board. They take you off the board because you have a right of free speech, don't you? I mean, and there's people out there that say,
Well, look what Joe's trying to do to DATV.
oh yeah, oh exactly, and there's no question. Just the fact that Joe mentioned DATV again last night, and what he's doing to DATV, and the questions has nothing to do with DATV. It has everything to do with Phil Thibault, John Zimini, Tammy Dristolaris, and whoever else.
Well, he mentioned Gordy Scott.
And Gordy
too.
Scott. He mentioned the other show too, when he wasn't friendly, when he wasn't butt kissing the other people because he thinks that's the right thing to do. I wouldn't doubt that he lost votes on account of that, doing that. People would have stayed home, not even bother. How can you lower yourself that much, you're saying, After 9 years, after 17 years of somebody kicking the crap out of you week after week. Yeah. And he's the guy that did it, that other guy. So the bottom line here is that they want to weaponize their own particular devices. Like they weaponized the Lowell Sun. They got the Lowell Sun in their pocket. And the headline here is cable access ties not a winning program. I mean, come on. Really? You think that's it? You think that means anything? 3 candidates associated with DATV defeated. Wow. Like that's on the front page, by the way.
Yeah, well, they also had me as a member of the planning board, so.
Yeah, they don't get.
Why should you let facts get in the way of a
They
story?
don't get anything. They don't get facts right, anyways. But so Phil, let's just, before we get down to, I want to get into some of the national stuff that's going on. We talked a little bit about Rich Cowan. Oh, and by the way, the attacks on Rich are not just limited to members in town government, whether it be, and there's different levels of attacks too. I watched that, and we're going to show that. Why don't we show that right now? Because we got about 3 minutes, right?
Nate, can you bring up my screen? Hopefully you got it.
There you go.
They wanted to see what the Board of Selectmen were going to do. So here we are. The total budget is $84.6 million. Of that,
We got a little technical
84.2 is
difficulty
through
here.
taxes and other revenues.
There it is.
195,000 from the sewer, 100,000 from water, so on and so forth to make up the revenues. So it's a balanced budget for fiscal year '22.
Okay. Madam Chair,
Yes.
in the history of you doing the budget, Ann, has the Finance Committee not made a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen and waited for the Board of Selectmen to make a recommendation to them? Because the very fact that the Finance Committee is an independent committee with no charge from us, no charge from you, or anyone else, they're supposed to make an independent recommendation and recommend to us.
Right.
Okay.
I explained that to them, but
I just wanted to reiterate that because I'm a little confused if they're not gonna make a recommendation. Waiting for us to make a recommendation.
Doesn't make any sense.
I'll motion to approve. Or recommend, I should say.
I just have one question.
Sure.
Ann, does this vary from what we got in the budget book?
Yes,
It does?
yes.
By how much?
I'd have to look at the budget book to compare it, but let me think for 1 second. The total amount,
Well,
I don't know what you mean, what,
this is the first time I've seen the numbers in the motion format, so that's why I asked the question. Is there a difference between this and what was proposed in the budget book?
oh, the bottom line, no, there won't be a difference in the bottom line for appropriations.
In the bottom line, right? So does this still leave the same amount of money in free cash?
At the end of the day, no, when we go through this, you'll see, we're not using free cash to supplement the budget at all.
Right.
That's for separate items within the capital projects.
Okay.
I just have, I don't know why the finance committee is not doing their job. I'm not quite sure of where we are here.
The Finance Committee is more interested at this point this year in the procedures and bylaws in the charter.
What's that got to do with this?
It has nothing to do with this. I have not been able to get them to focus on the budget itself.
So they might be able to take the other 10 months a year and work on the charter change of the finance committee, but then maybe 1 month a year they would work on the budget
Right.
leading up to town meeting.
I don't understand it, to be honest with you, but
Can you cut this off? We're going to come back, because that goes on for a couple more minutes. But Phil, what's your take on that? Because you had a comment before we went on air about that
So
particular piece.
I see a red herring right away, because the question is, has the Finance Committee ever not made a recommendation on a budget, on a warrant article, or the budget warrant article? And of course, they said no. But the warrant was just approved in that very meeting, so the Finance Committee didn't have a warrant article to make a recommendation on.
Right.
So-
They had a draft document that they were
Right,
working off of.
so much like, street acceptances.
Right.
I think later on in that same meeting, Jesse made a very similar comment that, why are we making a recommendation on this prior to the planning board? I don't see a recommendation from them. Well, they can't, because the warrant was just approved. The planning board doesn't have that document.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what it is. So,
So,
when we-
right, spin the narrative. That's all they're
No,
doing.
that's what they do. They change it around. And then for Joe to say he doesn't know why the finance committee's not doing their job. They're not doing their job the way you like it.
Yeah. So that,
Right? They're not doing the job because
again,
of the way you like it.
oftentimes you hear, and I know you've heard this a number of times
Yeah.
on different boards, well, this is the way we've always done it.
You're
So,
right.
I mean, Ann is probably saying, well, this is the way the Finance Committee has always approved the budget,
Yeah, because
where
it's a rubber
they've
stamp.
rubber stamped it.
Well-
So now they have somebody who's looking at it, so let them do
Well,
their job.
When I was on the committee, the finance committee, I never rubber stamped anything, and I pushed back on Dennis Peendak all the time. And now Ann, for her to make the comment, Ann saying, I'm having a problem getting them to focus. First of all, it's not your job to get them focused.
No,
It's
that-
the chairman's job to decide what determinations are going to be made at that board, and the members of the
Right.
board, not the manager. You're only there for informational purposes. But the managers historically have said, think it's their committee. I keep hearing applause
That's
in the
me,
background.
that's me.
People love what I'm saying. That's a good little thing. We should get more of that stuff. We have an audience here. So let's move on from that. We're going to begin a new segment in the future called In Their Own Words. We're going to take their words, whether it be in print or in electronic, off of Facebook, wherever it is, we're going to take their words and we're going to make them eat them, because that's what we did here tonight with showing you how Joe is not as gracious a person as people might think. And we're going to make them eat their words, because you're going to hear it not from us, but from them. The other thing I wanted to talk about was political signs. We had a little dispute over a political sign at the polling place. We were on the corner of Lakeview and the entrance to the school complex, and several times during the day we were told that we had to move a truck that was decorated with your signs on it. Kathy Graham came out and made you ask the person to move the truck. What's your response to that, Phil?
Well,
Do you have one?
I suppose it was a kind of minor. She came up to me and she told me that the sign needed to be moved, and I said, is that part of the town bylaws? I'm unaware of that section. And she said that I knew better. And I said, well, apparently I don't, and I'd like to know what section this is coming from. And at that point, the owner of the truck came up and he said, no, I'll just drive the sign around town.
Yep. So the bottom line is that political speech is one of the most protected portions of free speech in our Constitution. And the bylaw for signs has been proven to be illegal. And the person who proved it to be illegal was Brian Genest, who was one guy that went out and did something good to try to make this thing illegal, from what I understand. And I think it was it Brian Genest and DJ Deeb at one point did it. I may be wrong on who's doing what there, but I think it was both of them, similar to free speech stuff. The bottom line is that you cannot regulate signs during an election. Telling me that 17 people are standing there, and because we're not holding a 4x8 sign, that we had to have a person holding that sign. That's another harassment by the town clerk, whom we know supported Joe DeRocco to the hilt, and obviously was sticking it in the face of the candidate. She even was very nasty to me, saying, "You're not the candidate, I'm not talking to you." And I said, "No, but I'm a voter, and I'm a taxpayer, and I am a candidate in another election," and I said that I will take appropriate action and report the incident. Kevin Telly says, why do they get confused when questions are asked? Why, Kevin? Why do you think? Because they must be hiding something. Don't question the master. Just do what you're told. Yep. The Russian hackers, Gordy, they hacked the pipeline.
They did.
We're back into the 1970s. When Jimmy Carter, or 80s, when Jimmy Carter was the president, and we ended up in gas lines. What do you think is going to happen with that?
Well, the FBI, my understanding is the FBI went down there. They brought in their security specialist, and they've shored up their firewall. Things are back online, and they'll be delivering fuel again tomorrow. So.
You think so? Tomorrow?
Yep, that's what
I heard it by the end of the week, but we'll see. Hamas is pounding Israel with 600 rockets last night. I don't know how many rockets they sent over tonight, but how long will it take for Israel to retaliate in a big way? Phil? 30 seconds.
Not long. Maybe 30 seconds.
If you want to see a very interesting video, I posted on What's Happening Dracut on Facebook, a video from a friend of mine whose son is in Israel and in Tel Aviv. Last night videotaped this. It's an interesting little video on what was happening at that time. Joe Biden's 100 days of disaster, folks. You're living it firsthand. Folks, it's the end of our show. I had a great night. Gordy, did you have a good time?
Yes.
Phil?
Always.
Great time?
Always a good time.
Till next time, Gordy?
Folks, as always, thanks for watching. We're going to try to keep you in the know what's going on. We're always going to do the right thing. So when it's Wednesday night and it's 6:30, it's What's Happening Dracut. Good night, Dracut.
Good night, folks.